of the great benefits of the World Wide Web is that it provides instant access to information that previously may have taken hours, days, even weeks to uncover. For instance, in 1926, Queen Elizabeth was born, as was Emperor Hirohito of Japan. John Logie Baird presented his first television. A. Milne wrote Winnie the Pooh. Agatha Christie went missing, and the Hollywood heartthrob Rudolph Valentino died. Oh yes, and of course, there was a general strike. The general strike, the only one in British history, was called following the miners being locked out. The strike only lasted for 9 days, except that is for the miners who stayed out from May until October. The coal owners, they were members of a pretty powerful combine or union themselves, the South Wales Coal Owners Association, and they were seeking to reduce wages and increase hours. So perhaps it's understandable why the miners objected to this and stayed on strike, particularly after the TUC caved in on the 11th of May. Well, to say it was a time of hardship is something of an understatement. The miners and their families were confronted by malnutrition, by a really hostile government and press, and troops and police on the streets in their hundreds. One of the few compensations was that it was lovely weather, and it was so aptly described by Idris Davis in his poem The Angry Summer. A few lines from his epic 35-verse poem Gwalia Deserta captures something of what was happening at the time.
Do you remember 1926? That summer of soups and speeches, the sunlight on the idle wheels and the deserted crossings, and the laughter and the cursing in the moonlit streets? Do you remember 1926? Aye, we remember 1926, said Diane Shinkin as they stood on the curb in Charing Cross Road, and we shall remember 1926 until our blood is dry.
Well, back in the 1960s and 1970s, I was going around talking to people who remembered that time and the events. And it's the case with all witnesses that we only ever remember what happened to us as individuals. But some of the things that happened really spoke volubly about the clash of ideologies that so personified that angry summer. In some collieries, just being a member of the union, South Wales Miners' Federation, for instance, was considered pretty dangerous by the management, as Billy Bowen remembers so clearly.
Well, those days were terrible days. Well, do you know, when I went to the Ocean Colliery in Nantymoy in 1916, I joined the Federation. My father was in the Federation. I had a little square bronze tub, about the size of a threadney bit, a brass threadney bit, only it was square. And I had to sew him inside of that lapel of my coat going to work, for the fireman nor any of the bosses on the ground not to know that I was a member of the union. If he knew I was a member of the union, he'd sack me.
What came across so strongly to me was the terrific solidarity for that strike, or seemingly so, because there were some men who actually broke ranks and returned to work. They, of course, were known as blacklegs, and came in for a little bit of criticism from their striking workmates. One of the great activists at a local level was Richard Cornelius from Ogmo Vale. He recalled,
tendency at that stage for people to want to do blackleg, you know. The blacklegs were beginning to creep in. As a joint committee, we appointed individuals to approach these people in order to convert them anyway to conform to the pattern that we was pursuing in direct action. Well, some of them accepted our advice and others proceeded to work. Then it was resolved, of course, to give them a welcome when they were coming home from work.
I remember so well the twinkle in his eyes as he spoke about the welcome and the discussions the strikers had with those blacklegs.
From there, you had police escorting them home, and the mass of the people obviously wanted to discourage them. Anyway, you had the police now brought into the area from other parts of the country, Devonshire as we called them at that stage anyway.
This was a standard ploy at that time, and subsequent occasions, to import people who had little understanding or sympathy with the particular place or the circumstances.
And on one occasion, as these people, blacklegs, were coming home, people started stone throwing, you know. And of course there was a natural skirmish then with the police. When we were in the middle of this struggle, I had been in the army, you know. I had been a sergeant in the army.
Yeah.
And the police were advancing now onto us, and we weren't organised in any way. So in order to employ a defensive weapon, as we were, I encouraged the boys, don't throw any more stones, see, but aim at the one I'll tell you to, which meant concentrated fire, you know. That was in a machine gun section in the army. You were trained to concentrate on an object from every angle on the one, you know, we bound with it then. But anyway, now that's what we did. And I said, aim, all together, down he goes. Next one, down he goes again until, you know, we were in command of the position.
Although there are many, many accounts of police brutality at the time, I do have a little bit of sympathy for those poor police constables who, acting under orders, were lumbering up the hill towards a group of 40 or 50 miners, only to have somebody point a finger at you, and then they knew they were going to be the target for a veritable barrage of stones. So what was achieved by that prolonged strike? Well, some may argue not a lot really, because the miners were forced back to work in November. Subsequently, the TUC lost a large chunk of its membership, and general strikes were declared unlawful by an Act of Parliament in 1927. But in 1929, the Labour did win the general election. Not all the miners returned to work, though. There were some individuals, Richard Cornelius being one of them, who was denied work right the way across the South Wales coalfield. He never worked in the pits after that. I know it's something of a cliche to say that history repeats itself, but I was really surprised in 1965 when I heard the Byrds singing The Bells of Rumney. My goodness, I wonder if they really knew what that poem and what that song was all about. I think Pete Seeger, who put the words by Idris Davis to music, I think he certainly knew what it was all about. At least that's what I gathered from an epic afternoon I spent with him many, many years ago, listening to his reminiscences and hearing him sing his songs, including The Bells of Rumney.
Oh, what will you give me? Say the sad bells of Rumney. Is there hope for the future? Cry the brand bells of Merthyr. Who made the mine owners? Cry the black bells of Rhondda. And who robbed the miner? Cry the grim bells of Blaina. They will plunder willy-nilly, say the bells of Carthagy. They have fangs, they have teeth, shout the loud bells of Neath. To the south things are sullen, say the pink bells of Brecon. Even God is uneasy, say the moist bells of Swansea. Put the Vandals in court, say the bells of Newport. All will be well if, say the green bells of Cardiff. So why, worried sisters, why? Say the silver bells of wine. Oh, what will you give me? Cry the sad bells of